Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's great to hear your voices and see your icons that are on the screen. Today is Tuesday, June the 7th, 2022, and I would like to call to order this meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee of the Baltimore Board of School Commissioners. I know that we have a few commissioners that, one particularly, Commissioner Chin, you won't be with us, and we're awaiting the arrival of the others. However, the meeting is being recorded and we are going to get started. I certainly want to acknowledge the fact that we have begun graduation season. And we are so excited to be able to celebrate the accomplishments of our young people and their families, and certainly our school communities who do so much work for our young people each and every day. So shout out to all of our 2022 graduates this month. And we certainly know that we're going to have a few additional graduates for our summer graduation later on this summer. Good afternoon, Commissioner Reed. We're going to get started with our English learner update. And I definitely see Laura there with us. I'm not sure if you're beginning or if someone else is beginning, but we're ready for your presentation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dr. Dabrowski will start us off. Let me just see. I'm sorry, I was just checking. Maria, do you want to share your screen just so we have it up?
Absolutely. Laura, is it showing correctly?
Oh, there's.
So, sorry, just having a little technical issues here. My apologies. Good afternoon. Are we ready to go? Awesome. Okay. So this afternoon, excited to be here to share with you some really exciting work that's been going on in our area of supporting our English learners. I'm pleased to present some opening remarks about the work of our English learning strategic plan that Dr. Laura Ohanian and her team have been working on. So if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so this afternoon, we want to just really, as always, bring to the board our framing of this work in our recovery efforts, and this body of work situates itself in that. We have some data to share, and then most exciting, we really want to bring you up to speed on the multilingual learner and community plan. All right, so if we go to the next slide, you'll see where we have prioritized. Again, all of those light blue are signaling the connections between this work and the strategic priorities. There are so many spaces that this work, as you will learn about today, connects with instruction, with our different colleagues across different stakeholder groups. So again, very much aligned with the ways in which we are thinking about our work strategically here in city schools. If we go to the next slide, you'll see where and how this lives in our Reconnect, Restore, Reimagine framework. The key strategies here that we've highlighted down there in the red and pink are things you're going to hear in this work today. So the personalized learning, our work around acceleration, reimagined time for students, and then again, the expanded opportunities, both enrichment and academic opportunities. And next slide, please. And then when we look a little bit further within those strategies, the work within acceleration, we want to really call out the high quality instructional materials that we're thinking about for our English learners. We think about the power of small group instruction, how we use time, how we're thinking about our secondary students and those pathways. And then as you can see that dual language programming is a key part of our expanded opportunities work under our R3. And the next slide, please. And at this point, am I tossing it to Dr. Ohanian? Am I bringing it to you? So Dr. Ohanian is our Director of Differentiated Learning, and she'll get us started and she'll introduce her team as well.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dabrowski. And I'm actually going to introduce Maria Remo right now. She's our Esau Coordinator. Maria will start you off with the first few slides, and then I'll talk a little bit about in more detail around the plan. So Maria will talk a little bit about the vision and some of the data. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. So we wanted to start by sharing our vision for our multilingual community and our English learners, and that is to ensure that our English learners attain multilingual literacy, meet or exceed academic standards, rigorous academic standards, and that they are prepared for college and career success. And you can see from the data on this particular slide that 11% of our students receive ESOL services and are considered English learners. We have 15% of our families, however, that speak a language other than English in their homes. We have 3 beliefs that guide our work with our multilingual community and our English learners. The first applies to our entire multilingual community, that the language and cultural resources that the students and the families bring are tremendous assets to their learning and to our school communities. Specific to our English learners, we strongly believe that English learners can achieve at high levels with the right expectations and support, and that all educators are responsible for the language development of our English learners. We look at our English learners across Baltimore. You'll see again, as we said, 11% of our students are English learners. The visual there, the map of the city, is important because it shows that while we certainly have clusters of students in certain parts of the city, we do in fact have English learners all across Baltimore City. They live and go to school in all parts of our beautiful city. We look at some of the demographic data for our English learners. This is specific to the students who are actively receiving ESOL services. They come from 85 different countries and speak 70 languages. Our students who are born in the United States still continue to be our largest group, and Spanish is, of course, our most common language. I would draw your attention to the remaining languages on that list of our 8 most common: Arabic, Swahili, English, French, Tigrinya, Nepali, and Chinese. These you will find are slightly different from the rest of the state, which is very representative of the fact that we have a large number of refugees that settle in our city and attend our schools. Our growth has been phenomenal. ELs are our fastest growing student group, and our enrollment has almost doubled in just the last 5 years. And you can see 10 years worth of growth here on the slide, but those last 5 years have really shown tremendous growth. What that looks like in our schools, however, can vary and does vary school to school. We have 12 schools that represent 47% of our EL enrollment, and you can see that list off to the side there. However, we also have 74 schools that have 25 or fewer ELs. So there's a tremendous difference in the enrollment counts across our schools, depending on the school, the area, the city. But the big highlight here is that really our students are in all our schools. The last data slide I'm going to share with you is around the Weda model assessment, which is a formative assessment that we gave for the first time this school year. It was administered at BOY, and we are wrapping up an Eoi Administration as we speak. This assessment is a formative assessment that is aligned directly to the access assessment that is given as part of the annual MCAP program. This assessment we opted to start giving this year in order to give us real-time data about our students' proficiency levels, and it does measure their language proficiency in all 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And what we found in our BOY administration, it does, and I would note, it does not include kindergarten. This assessment is only given to grades 1 through 12. But what we found was that 64% of our English learners at the beginning of this school year were in those earliest stages of language proficiency. We see a lot of brand new students in the city, and as a result, we have a lot of beginners. They're brand new to US schools, so their English language proficiencies are in those early levels. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much, Maria. So I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about the goal areas. So we have our goal areas are sort of broken down into the English learners in our multilingual community. And the first goal area is differentiated support for high impact sites, which is really around how we have focus and really thoughtful support for what's considered what's high impact. High impact means schools that have the highest percentage of ELs, so 20% or 30% or more of the students are English learners. We have a focus on foundational literacy in pre-K2 for ELs. How does that have to be different if English is not your primary language, if your oral proficiency is not in English, which is a lot of sort of the assumptions when we're going through our foundational literacy. Next is the supporting secondary ELs. Our secondary ELs will often come to us older with what's referred to as interrupted formal schooling. So that means there has been gaps anywhere for 6 months to years in their instruction. And they're also learners of English. Some of them actually read and write in their native language, some don't. So some have native language literacy, others do not. The high quality instruction for ELs, a real focus on the professional development, not just for ESOL teachers, but for administrators, for general educators, or special educators, for all the staff that work with English learners on the best strategies for supporting them. Dual language opportunities, which is our next goal area. This is really about how we truly obtain that multilingual literacy, provide opportunities for native language use by students in the classroom, leveraging their L1, which is their native language, when they're learning English, and opportunities to provide, transitional or differentiated support for them. And then staffing and recruitment, which is goal 6. This is really around, and this is green because it also overlaps with our multilingual community. So do we have key bilingual staff in key positions? How are we sort of targeting our efforts to hire bilingual staff and recruit bilingual staff to support students? And then finally, our communication and engagement, which is our goal 7. This is where we're really talking about how we're supporting our multilingual families from the time of enrollment all the way through how are we ensuring we have appropriate interpretation and translation supports, all the things that we do to support our English learners and multilingual families. Go to the next. Everything we do is grounded in our 5 practices. And these are the 5 practices that we have identified through our feedback from stakeholders, through research, through data that we say, with these 5 practices, we'll see the best results for our English learners in our multilingual community. So it's ensuring we have language objectives associated with content objectives, collaborative planning and teaching models, content teachers and appropriate scaffolds at differentiated levels, right? Not assuming every EL needs the same scaffold or needs as much scaffolding as another. ESOL staff providing quality language instruction, and then engagement opportunities for our multilingual families. And so now I'm going to go through the goal areas and give you a couple highlights on some of them and then I'm going to go deeper in a few. So the first one is goal 1 is differentiated support at the high impact sites. And we actually have, I'll talk about this a little bit in just a second. And we actually luckily have one of our most amazing principals here, Denise Ashley and Hannah Gordon, who will also talk about it, but I'll talk about that in just a second. Goal 2 is our foundational literacy in pre-K2 for ELs. Here we've had some great progress in identifying a collaborative work group from across departments and schools. We also have done a lot of school visits and we're about to draft guidance to release to schools and professional development on the best way to support students in their newcomers. These are students in their earliest proficiency levels during those foundational literacy blocks with a focus on foundations, Haggerty, and small group instruction. The third goal area is supporting secondary ELs. These are the differentiated supports we provide for our students with interrupted schooling. This year, we've had some amazing growth in this area. We launched our Transitional 9 program, which is a semester program for students who enroll much later in the year. We still have students enrolling even this week because they're new to the country, and it provides them a focused semester of language instruction and allows them to start the 9th grade year the following year along with their peers and having a full year to do those 9th grade courses. We also have our Spanish algebra classes, which we're pretty excited about, that will be launching next year, and a similar cohort to the one I'm about to describe for secondary. So we'll go to the next slide. So our Title I initiative, again, I'm going to let Principal Ashley and Hannah talk a lot more about this, but just to very quickly, this is where we focused on our schools that are 30% or more EL at the start of this initiative. We have a coach in each of these schools that's supervised by the ESOL office, and they're responsible for coaching the content teachers, providing professional development to the whole staff, and working with the multilingual families. We're funding this position, we're providing the professional development, we're providing the opportunities for the PLC amongst the coaches, which we have found to be one of the most valuable components of this, and maybe Hannah will talk a little bit about that. And then we provided stipends for differentiated support, for summer stipends to do specific work. So again, Highlandtown 237 is here to talk about it when I finish talking, and I'll try to talk quickly so they have plenty of time to talk a little bit about this. Go to the next one. So the next two goal areas are high quality instruction for ELs and dual language opportunities. So for high quality instruction for ELs, I'm very excited to say that the last few of our systemic PDs, we've had hundreds of general educators signing up to participate in our EL professional development. We are also creating a series or course pathways for our general educators. So those that have gone through an ESOL 101 can go into an EL strategies and then go into some differentiated strategies. So as a general educator, you can build your craft working with English learners. So this is pretty exciting. And we're just, because in past years, we haven't had the highest participation, but I think this last systemic PD, we had almost 400 wanting to join our session. So that was very, very exciting. We have a number of AU courses, and we actually just released this year also an abbreviated ESOL 101 that's actually an asynchronous course with some office hours, which has been really popular too. With dual language, we'll actually go to the next slide. This is probably one of the things I'm most excited to announce is that we're preparing to launch our dual language initiative. As I'm sure you're aware, BIA, both sites and Lakeland are running bilingual programming, but we're actually going to be doing a larger launch of bilingual programming. So in April, we released the application. We're currently in the process of reviewing those applications from schools. We've brought on some support from the Center for Applied Linguistics. Their previous director is actually working with us directly on this work, and we will be identifying the schools for next year to prepare to be doing showcase lessons in pre-K classrooms to engage the community so they know sort of what we're opting into for the launch, for full launch for the following year. So that is very exciting, I think. And then we'll go to the last two goal areas with staffing and recruitment. I think the biggest, most exciting thing is for the first time ever at the end of the year during the declaration of intent, every staff member was asked to identify whether they're bilingual or biliterate and their level of bilingual literacy and the language. So for the first time ever, we're going to have a needs assessment. So we truly know the language status and like what the different languages are our staff speak and their experiences in that area. So that's very exciting. We've also started a work group with key offices, including related services, enrollment, our office, to think about key positions in schools where we should be heavily recruiting for bilingual staff. And then lastly, our communications and engagement. Our engagement office has been an amazing partner engaging our communities, Shout out to Edwin, who is an amazing member of that team and does so much work to support our families. We also have been working very hard to run every month family sessions in our 5 most common languages to support our English learners and our multilingual families to understand sort of what's the key things they need to know that time of the month. What's coming up at enrollment times, what's coming up at choice time, different times of the year. So every month we run those sessions. And then finally, we've launched a Spanish language communication project. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about our MESC office, our Multilingual Enrollment and Support Center. This opened in 2018. They are supporting the enrollment of our multilingual families, including and supporting the choice process. We evaluate foreign transcripts here. We have bilingual staff and social workers in the office. We connect them with community organizations, and we do case management of families. So we track the students and families and provide support after they've enrolled and enroll in specialized programs like the Transitional 9. You can see here, and this is about a month old because of the timelines, but we've had about 1,300 families at that point. We have much more now who have enrolled through that office just this year. So that's very, very exciting. Okay. I believe now I have the privilege. Okay. I have the privilege of introducing one of my favorite people in the whole world, Principal Denise Ashley and Hannah Gordon, who is on Denise's team. Hi, Denise.
Hey.
To talk a little bit about your participation in the Title I initiative, and a little bit about your experiences and your working. And before she starts, I just wanted to say, I'm not sure if everybody realizes that Highlandtown 237 is our largest ESOL site in the district. So kudos to Principal Ashley and her amazing team. And I will stop and allow her to speak about it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. This is an absolutely exciting time at Highlandtown 237. We enjoy being the largest ESOL site. We think that makes us phenomenally unique and amazing. We have been working closely with Laura and Maria and that entire team for years. I've been in Baltimore City 12 years, and we had a kind of apart a little bit, and we have continued to grow. We're at 79, high 70%, depends on what day it is. Our numbers move up and down, but we are excited for the multilingual families that we have. And in working with Laura's team, using those 5 practices has enabled us to support our children and our families in ways that are just outstanding. When we first started using the language objectives, we had a few, and it worked. I will say that Ms. Hannah Gorton, who is our ESOL EA, has really pushed hard. We do a lot of collaborative work. Most of our ESOL teaching is co-teaching. I came from a special ed and general ed co-teaching background. We started talking about co-teaching and the benefits. I was already on board. Hannah is amazing in the work that she does with content teachers. Co-teaching is kind of like a marriage. Gotta kind of feel your way through. And one of our teachers pointed out to me not long ago that when there is good co-teaching, it is an amazing model for children in how to get along, in how to collaborate, in how to problem solve. Those are all life skills that we begin with our children organically, and it becomes the outcomes that we see are absolutely outstanding. That collaborative planning and teaching happens with us, not just in our academic planning meetings, but all day long. Teachers are talking about children. We have an ESOL intervention teacher, because then we've identified certain children that need just a little bit more. She's bilingual. It helps. It makes a big difference. And so I am going to ask this committee to consider hiring as many bilingual teachers as we possibly can to recruit bilingual teachers, because it does make a difference. Having our content teachers incorporate the scaffolds that all of our children need. And I need to say that the good teaching, good instruction is good instruction. And when our teachers are implementing solid instructional practices for our ELs, every single child sitting in those classrooms benefits, because all of our children are language learners. Many of our children don't come to school having strong academic English. And so the manner in which we work this guidance from Maria and Laura makes a difference for all of our children. These strategies work. Having our ESOL staff providing that quality language instruction is huge, because depending on where the children's levels are, that determines what additional supports we get. And I'll say again, Hannah again is awesome with the data. She does it well. She brings it to us, and then we can sit and look at who needs to be where. She takes it to the academic planning meetings, and everybody knows exactly where our kids are. And finally, the engagement piece. We had an award ceremony 2 weeks ago. Over 300 people came. Our families are in. They're vested. They are definitely invested in their children. They're invested in our school and what we do. And then I think that sometimes it may not show up as much in the various surveys, but I need everyone to understand that while our parents are absolute their children and in their children's education, many, many times, more times than we may care to acknowledge, our families are not literate in any language. And so we know that when we bring our families together and we are working to bring them in to celebrate their children and support their children, they're coming. They are going to be here. They're going to be here to support in whatever way that they can. That high collaboration is amazing. Having our instructional coaches, we call them the Three Musketeers. They're down there in what we used to call room 245. Their collaboration and the way that that think tank works. And I am a firm believer in distributive leadership. When you hire the right people, you give them the tools, you set the expectations, amazing things can happen. And I am very, very proud of my ESOL team, all of my coaches. And that focus on collaborative planning and co-teaching, everybody's on it and it's working well. I will note that very often our ESOL students outperform our native our native English speakers after they've had several years. And so what we have done here as we identified that was, let's make sure that the practices we use for ESOL, we are using across the board so that all of our children benefit. And Hannah said it, necessary for some and beneficial for all. Ms. Gorton, would you like to speak?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to join this meeting today. I'm very excited to share some of the work that's happening at Highlandtown 237. One thing I do want to point out is when we have effective co-teaching, students and people who are walking in the building don't necessarily know who is the content teacher and who is the ESOL teacher, because again, we are all learning academic English, and I think that's something that we are doing very, very well through this initiative. The other thing I would just like to mention about the Title I initiative is the strong collaboration with all of the coaches in the building. In order for these things to be successful in infusing all of the school and district initiatives, we cannot work in silos. So we have to be planning everything together, as well as devising what supports are needed in different places. So by having that collaboration with the coaches, we're able to have a better impact on the school as well. I think that's all I have right now.
Absolutely. Any questions for us?
Well, that's good. Yeah, Denise, we can open it up because I think you're the last slide. So that's
Okay.
it. I'm so excited. Thank you for presenting. And I guess we're turning it back over Yeah.
Thank you so much. And this is exciting. It's exciting to hear all of what is happening around, number one, at Highlandtown, but just with our program overall, system-wide, right? To see the growth, I appreciate that slide that you mentioned there, Laura, to see the growth, it's the numbers, right? To see that increase from over the past 10 years where we've grown, rightfully so, right? Because our demographics are changing. And so that means our supports have to be enhanced to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, because you're right, all of our students, we believe, can achieve at high levels, certainly with the right supports, as you all have mentioned. And it's great to hear what's happening at Highlandtown as our largest servicer of language learners. So that's really great. That's really great. I'm going to open it up to the other commissioners that are on the committee to see if they have any questions or clarifying thoughts or just anything that they like to offer.
If Atira doesn't want to go, I can go, even though she knows a lot more than I do about everything regarding education. I guess my first question is to Principal Ashley. All you ladies, you did a great job, but Principal Ashley, just a couple questions just to educate me. I'm not an educator by background, so therefore my learning curve is a lot steeper than everyone online. If I come to you as a parent, a neighbor, a commissioner, what would be the magic bullet that you would like to see in terms of resources? And I guess my second question would be, in terms of looking at, I see the energy, I see the what's happening. How do you qualitatively know you're succeeding? Everybody looks at numbers, but there's a big qualitative element. So how do you know you're succeeding there?
I'll start with the second question. We know that we are succeeding as we move throughout our building and when we're welcoming our children in for breakfast. And they're excited to be here. And they come in and they've got big old smiles. And yes, there's COVID, but I have never told a child they can't hug me. And so they come in and they grin and it's, hey, Miss Ashley. And we're talking about how we're going to start our day. And as I'm moving through classrooms, I'm watching children who at various levels of English language proficiency are working, and they're friends and they're translating for each other and they're trying to figure out what they're doing and they're asking questions. When I know that my kids have a safe environment in which to learn and they are okay with not knowing yet, because yet's our big word. Yet is an important piece of this. I may not know it yet, but I'm working on it. Okay, then tell me something you've learned today. And they go into a conversation when they can do that. And it doesn't matter how you give your answer. What I want to know is, what are you thinking? Can you do it in writing? Can you draw it? You want to do it in English? You want to do it in Spanish? You want to do it in Swahili? I'm all in. Help me learn your language. So those kinds of conversations, it's the energy in our building, because as long as we keep our children engaged and we're keeping our families engaged, the learning is going to happen. We take care of our teachers so that our teachers can take care of our children. Those pieces are huge. You asked the question about resources. I would ask that this committee talk to people in this district, not just about buying new things, but about understanding that the trajectory of our learners is very different from the trajectory of students who are born speaking English. And so what we've asked, and we've been having this conversation for a number of years now, is around when we're evaluating teachers and administrators, we're using the same rubric, which is a good thing. But there needs to be a different trajectory because, for instance, our kindergarten students rarely come out of red by mid-year. Not because they're not learning, but because they are in the receptive stage of language acquisition. And unless we recognize that, what we get is a lot of pushback. Well, your kids are on red. Well, yeah. How much do you know about the Weda can-do descriptors becomes our question. And we're asking that everybody become familiar with that. And that when we're talking about evaluations for Baltimore City school staff, that we take those different trajectories into consideration. We're not changing, because absolutely all of these children deserve a high quality education, and we're going to make it happen. But we've got to make sure that people are not being penalized because the population they serve moves in a different trajectory. That would be the resource I'd ask for.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Ashley, Principal Ashley. Commissioner Griffin?
Hello there, everyone. I'm sorry I'm off camera. I'm moving about today. Thank you all so much for this presentation. It was really good to learn more about our English language learners and the schools that have high concentrations, but also seeing that map that showed our students across the city. Because I definitely understand that's a misconception that everyone's in Southeast Baltimore, and that is not true. So I appreciate that. I also appreciated the slide. I think Commissioner McFadden, Chair McFadden brought it up with the numbers showing the different years and how many students you had enrolled through the program or got in contact with their families through the program. And then there was a dip, but to see the comeback and the bounce back be so strong, I just wanted to lift that up as something, one, to be proud of, and to think like what was done that can continue to be implemented to be sure that we're capturing as many students and families as possible. The last piece that really stuck out to me, Principal Ashley, you said you made a plea to the committee and talked about needing more educators who are bilingual. And I'm just really curious from staff, how are we approaching that? Like, where is this coming up in conversations? What does that type of recruitment look like? And when we say bilingual, we're talking about multiple languages when we look at the needs for our city. And so I was just curious around that in general. Yeah.
Is there, Commissioner McFadden and Griffin, would you like me to respond to that? I want to make sure it was a question.
Yes.
So as part of our goals, we do have a specific goal area around staffing and recruitment. It is very important that an educator, at bare minimum, is bicultural, is what we refer to it, and bilingual is an incredible benefit, right? The research suggests that if you understand what it's like to have the experiences of living abroad and not speaking a language, or what that experience feels like, it can make a huge impact, right? If it's okay, I'll even tell you English was my third language. I don't know if people know that. Armenian and Farsi were my first two. My first 4 years in school, I didn't say a word. I would write down answers, but I wouldn't talk. And I just remember the fear of not saying anything because you just don't want to say it wrong. And so it's so important for an educator, and even if they're not bilingual, for example, for us to provide them professional development to understand the experiences. We have one of our staff members who will sometimes, some of us will start professional development in another language that we know the rest of the team doesn't speak, right? Just to let them feel for a couple minutes what it's like to sit in a classroom, right? And what's the difference when you do the right sort of presenting, when you have the right materials in front of you, right? If I do a session in Armenian, there's nobody in that room that probably speaks Armenian, right? But if I do the right type of presenting, if I scaffold in the right way, if I have pictures, right, it can make a huge difference. And so we drill into that. We also, part of the strategy right now, we never knew how many bilingual or biliterate. So that was step one to answer your question, Commissioner Griffin, was in that declaration of intent for the first time ever. We're going to have a needs assessment. We're going to know who's bilingual in the district and who's not. For those, I mean, of course, not everyone fills out the declaration of intent, but the majority of people do. So we'll have that data. That gives us a baseline because, to be honest with you, we're working on word of mouth, right? We don't really know. So we finally will have some data to work with, and then we'll be able to come back hopefully next year and say, here's where we started. Here's where we are in these different areas. We also really think a lot, and Principal Ashley did this early on in her schooling. So she's talking to you of an experienced principal, but having bilingual staff in a secretary position or in a guidance position or in a social worker position, right? Those positions will have very intimate conversations that are interacting with families, because an educator being bilingual is awesome, especially they have to be bilingual and biliterate for some of our bilingual programming, right? So we started Spanish algebra. We're going to start dual language. Those have to be bilingual and biliterate. Let me add that. However, you can do great ESOL instruction even if you're not bilingual. If you can understand the experience, if you know how to scaffold appropriately. So I apologize, I went a little tangent, but the short answer to that question, Commissioner Griffin, is yes, yes, yes. It is a huge part of what we do. In fact, my team tends to be the ones that go out to Puerto Rico and all the places where we recruit. And when we see a bilingual staff member who's not necessarily for an ESOL position, we send them along the way. We send them to another principal. Hey, I've got a bilingual math teacher. Hey, but we'll finally be able to say, oh, here's this school. This is their percent. Here's how many bilingual staff. Okay, we really need to be recruiting for bilingual staff here. We just don't have that data until now. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Thank you for explaining that. It was very comprehensive. So don't feel like you went on a tangent. It was definitely good for me to hear and to understand like what that process looks like. Like, where are we recruiting from? How far do we go? And I'm just always trying to be cognizant and aware of the shifting career change climate that we're in, and thinking about how that impacts all the different segments that we may need to hire for. So that's another reason why I lifted it up. But knowing that you all already go lengths to find folks, I'm absolutely sure that you all are more than able to continue to look in those nooks and crannies for people. It makes me think about higher education though, and how our educators are trained and the core classes that they're asked to take, and thinking about on that side of life, like what do we tell our partners where we get a lot of our educators from locally, or even if they're coming from other states, how do we communicate to those entities that, hey, it might be time to review, or it is time to review the courses that are required for educators at this time. Like, we are living in a global society, and dual language ability or bilingual biliterate ability is necessary. So just a thought, not something we're solving here, but just a thought to share. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Any additional thoughts? Dr. Dabrowski, anyone want to offer? I'm fine. I'm just taking it all in, just listening to the great work. And sometimes I think that's important for us to do as well, right? We see the data, but just take a moment to hear, listen, and take in everything that broadens our perspective of, number one, again, how our city is evolving, and then the supports we're providing to the evolution, right, that exists within our city. I think it's really important to listen and hear, and then that broadens our perspective, Principal Ashley, on what we need in our schools, right, based on what you just offered. It's good to see you again. I haven't been to your school in a couple of years, but it's good to see you again. I will. You see where I am. I'm still in my I'm still in my school building right now.
I know, it's where we live.
I
You
know
need to
it
swing
is.
by.
I
Yeah.
will. I will. I will make that promise. And if not, before school ends, certainly during the summer, because I'm sure you all are offering some summer programs there.
Actually, we're in the swing space this year, and so that whole busing, it just gets complicated. So what I will do is invite you to our welcome back home party. We are moving in December. We're planning already. That's our holiday gift. is the district is giving us the gift of our building, our newly renovated building back. So we are happy dancing as we begin getting ready for that. So no, short answer, we're not doing summer program here. We are doing, not for children. What we're doing is a 237 university. And during the 237 university, it's all for staff. All adults are invited back the first week of August because we've got a mountain of work to go through. We've got some team building we're talking about what trauma-informed instruction looks like, making sure that all of our teachers understand that biculturalism that Laura is talking about, getting started on some of the nuts and bolts so that when we come back on the traditional reopening, we're kind of in a groove already. We're already on a flow that allows us to keep moving with just a little bit less stress. A little bit.
That sounds good. Your school and that community is blessed to have you there, Principal Ashley. Thank you. Thank you to your team. Thank you to everyone that's presented to us today. And we're going to move into our procurement agenda. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am blessed. Thank you. So I'm actually going to turn things over to Commissioner Reed to just lead us through the procurement agenda. Commissioner Griffin, if you have any questions about anything specifically, feel free to jump in. But I'll start with Commissioner Reed, if you don't mind.
Sure. Executive privilege. I acquiesce. Thank you very much for being here. I guess one question. We have like 1501 through 1504. Is that going to be redundant where it comes both to this committee and the operations committee, or because it looks like an operations committee purview? My question is it going to be redundant and come to both committees or just this committee?
No, typically you will only see this in the summer because there's only one board meeting in June, July, and August. So you may see some overlap so that the letters don't have to wait for the next agenda.
Okay, because I see construction management, building repair, janitorial services, and camera security. Those all appear to be like operational type questions.
As well as section 16 and a couple from section 19, chief of schools.
Okay. And I guess my other question is 2001. That's the one about community schools.
Yes.
Is that paid for out of the poverty grant or some other source?
Let's see, Holly, are you?
Hi, Shabray, I'm on.
Thank you.
And how many schools?
So this is for 2 community school lead agencies, Southwest Partnership and CNC Advocacy. They have a total of 2 schools or 3 schools between them right now at $85,000 per school. And it is paid for. It is paid for out of concentration of poverty funds.
Okay. Okay, so the numbers don't add up for me. You just said 3 schools, 85,000 per school, but the request is 1.92 million.
So the request is an increase of the 485,000. And it is because they are each approved to serve more than the community schools they have. So I believe they're each approved to serve up to 3 schools per year. And we go for the maximum just in case there is some kind of school switch to cover them with the board letter for fiscal 23.
Okay, so let me do my simple math.
480,000.
So simple math for 3 schools would be 255,000. So how do we go from 255,000 to 1.92 million?
So let me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the the total amount of the current contract is 1.4 million, and they're asking for an increase of 480,000.
So
So
how
that
many
would take
schools are you
it.
talking? So you're talking a lot of schools, but we're only talking 3 schools.
So again, so when we were choosing the amount, we decided to, because they were approved in the RFP, to go up to 3 to 5 schools each as lead agencies. We wanted to cover them in case in fiscal 23, a school would choose to, in addition to the schools they have right now, a new school wanted to choose them as a community school lead agency. We try to limit that in a mid-year switch, but we wanted to account for it in the board letter limit in case it happened. So
Okay,
that's why instead of the 250,000 or so, it is up to the full 480,000. Like I said, just to account for that in contingency in case it occurred.
So that's 480,000 for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years?
So this request, I believe, is an extension for 1 fiscal year.
Okay, all right. So we're talking cumulative then, since 2019.
Yes, since 2019 is the total 1.9.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And I guess my other question is there some way this committee can see or get an aggregate? Because I'm looking at tutoring, I'm looking at extended learning. I don't know if they're all both part of the same purview, but I think we may have like 10 different requests. All tend to be 3 years. So I guess my question is, for those tutoring and extended learning programs, how we can come up with an aggregate number and also learn over time which ones are most successful, because there are a lot of programs. Cognition, Elevate 8, FEV Tutor, Maryland Tutors, Smart Start, and then you have the extended learning at the other places. I guess my question is, from my seat, I'd just like to know what the aggregate ask is. What's the spend rate? Because we're looking 3 years for each one of them. So how much are we going to spend over 3 years? And I see Dr. Dabrowski, I've asked this in the past, how we can lever that and discern which ones are most successful, give them more money, and blow up the ones that don't work.
Yeah, no, it's the right question to ask. I think we're still in the very early phase of our implementation, and I will say one of the challenges we've faced is capacity of each of these individual entities, if you will. So right now, our current strategy has been to have multiple partners and vendors helping us early on in this work, because we are knowing that so many of our students will benefit from it. And I will give a huge shout out to the colleagues who are leading the tutoring work around trying to put these monitoring plans in place to study to see where we're seeing more impact or better impact. It's just we're still in the early phase of that. So I ask for your continued patience, but it's on our mind as well as we get into our next year of already getting better at who's using which groups and which ones are getting some movement in our data. And again, it's hard to fill the demand, and that's why you're seeing multiple vendors involved.
And as you ladies pointed out earlier, you don't necessarily spend all of it.
We do not.
You make an ask, you don't spend all of it, because I think it's really good that you say does not commit city schools to specific extended learning programs in spending. So I think that's really important for us to know.
That's right. That's right.
Also for our board colleagues, make sure that's reinforced when you make your presentation. But I guess the other thing is, when we spend, it probably helps me because I look at the extended learning. Looks like most of the extended learning was decided at the school or department level. Can you help me, and maybe the committee and the board, learn what money comes out of grants, what money comes out of district, and what money comes out of potentially schools and departments, so we can see the silos and see what's definitive and what's aspirational? Because
Commissioner Reed, you're looking for more than what they note in the funding source in these letters?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess getting back to what I said to Dr. Borowski earlier, it's more an aggregate. than each particular ask. Because when you use extended learning, how much are we spending? I don't know. But if I add these numbers up, it still won't be right because it doesn't include programs we already have.
Right, and our commitment right now, trying to expand for next year, trying to open up more opportunities. But I think your point is well taken around which ones of these are sort of the ones that are being directed centrally, which ones might live in school budgets and have school decisions, because there are likely a variety represented in this collective PQS that just went out for what's, it's almost like these are the ones that are pre-qualified, right, to be able to access. So I think, yeah, it could be just to your point, how we structure the financial sort of bucketing of extended learning programs. And I would defer, Shabrea, again, it may be some work with your office around what's the best way of communicating that. Because I do think the volume, again, of different programs and vendors is the same thing that we see in tutoring. We're trying to expand the number of programs and students served. And we know that one single program is not going to be able to do that. So we're trying to, again, in the PQS experience, we have very clear qualifiers of what makes them, viable partners for us. But then I hear what you're saying is then how does that then relate into how it actually comes down in the spending? And it's almost like on the back end of it, like how did all this play out in terms of who spent what on which program, which I think we can easily pull. It's just sort of a different type of way of cutting at it. But I understand.
And I guess another thing the board has to learn and be cognizant of is because of CARES money and its grants, they will go away.
Yep.
So what's the impact on these programs? When these go away, who's going to start to pay for it and how are we going to pay for it?
Yep.
Because CARES funding ends in 2025 totally, I think, or was it before that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think, and there's, again, whether or not there'll be an extensions, but I think you're right. We have to understand where are we in short-term dollars versus the longer Kerwin dollars. I think that's the space. I definitely will need conversation with both sort of our OAA office and finance to kind of get at that ask, Commissioner Reed, and it's the right one. But I know when I'm getting out of my lane as the academics, right?
Yeah.
So I want to be careful not to misspeak on the issue.
And I think you and Chris have to help us with that because you made a great point that our board has to recognize and also the community, where does CARES money end?
Yep.
And where does Kerwin money pick up?
That's right.
And will it be the same? They may not be the same programs.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Christian, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to jump in. So I wasn't able to jump in early. I wanted to make sure I was speaking correctly. Commissioner Reed, those operations items on the agenda, those are items that due to timeline, they wouldn't, and due to the fact that we only have one board meeting this in June, they came to teaching and learning. So you all got an email last week just with that, so the operations go away, and so that's why that's there. Just to FYI.
And so you and Ms. Matthews both corrected me and put me in the right place. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Reed, do you have any additional questions or thoughts?
No, I think it's pretty comprehensive in terms of procurement. A lot of stuff for people to read. It's pretty hard for the whole board to get their arms around all that. But I would recommend board members and also the community, if you have the opportunity, to go through each. And also, it's a learning process. You could learn what we're spending it on, where it's coming from, and also how long we're going to spend it. But I guess the key is it does not necessarily commit city schools to spend that money. That's the key.
Commissioner Griffin?
No additional questions from me.
Thank you. Thanks, Shabrea, Ms. Matthews, Dr. Dabrowski. Thank you so much for this. Is there anything that you, Ms. Matthews, want to bring to us or highlight, or are you okay?
No, I'm okay. Thank you for asking, though.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Gant, Christian, I don't see anyone signed up for public comment. Is there anything else that you have for our meeting this afternoon?
I don't, but thank you.
Yep. Again, congratulations to all of our graduates. If there are folks listening, thank you to our central office staff, our city school staff, everyone that is here in this meeting in some way, shape, or form is impacting the lives of all of our young people, all of our students. And so this is a great time for all of us to be proud of our students and their families and our communities, as we're in a really important time and a milestone in many of their lives. This is a high school graduation. And we're in that season. And we certainly know that there are some this evening as well. So I know that staff may have to get to those and attend to those. But thank you all so much for being here at this meeting. We're at our end. Commissioner Reed, is there anything else that you have for us?
No, I appreciate your time and your leadership. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. Thank you.
Yep, I definitely appreciate this committee. The next meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee will be on July 5th. That is the day after the 4th of July, Independence Day. So we will meet on July 5th. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good day.